Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 44. Ajasya Janma Utpata Nashanaya Karmani Akartu Grahanaya Pumsam Nanu Amyata Kaha Arvati Deha Yogam Paraha Gunanam Uta Karmatantram Ajasya Janmodpatanashanaya Karmanya Kartur Grahanaya Pumsam Nanvanyata Kurhati Deha Yogam Paro Gunanam Uta Karma Tantram Ajasya Janmodpatanashanaya Karmanya Kartur Grahanaya Pumsam Nanvanyata Kurhati Deha Yogam Paro Gunanam Uta Karma Tantram Ajasya Janmodpatanashanaya Karmanya Kartur Grahanaya Pumsam Nanvanyata Kurhati Deha Yogam Paro Gunanam Uta Karma Tantram Ajasya Janmodpatanashanaya Karmanya Kartur Grahanaya Pumsam
Kurhati Deha Yogam
Nanvanyata Kurhati Deha Yogam
Gunanam Uta Karma Tantram
Paro Gunanam Uta Karma Tantram
Ajasya Janmodpatanashanaya
Ajasya Janmodpatanashanaya
Karmanya Kartur Grahanaya Pumsam
Karmanya Kartur Grahanaya Pumsam
Nanvanyata Kurhati Deha Yogam
Nanvanyata Kurhati Deha Yogam
Paro Gunanam Uta Karma Tantram
Paro Gunanam Uta Karma Tantram
Ajasya Janmodpatanashanaya
Ajasya Janmodpatanashanaya
Karmanya Kartur Grahanaya Pumsam
Karmanya Kartur Grahanaya Pumsam
Nanvanyata Kurhati Deha Yogam
Nanvanyata Kurhati Deha Yogam
Paro Gunanam Uta Karma Tantram
Paro Gunanam Uta Karma Tantram
Ajasya Janmodpatanashanaya
Ajasya Janmodpatanashanaya
Karmanya Kartur Grahanaya Pumsam
Karmanya Kartur Grahanaya Pumsam
Nanvanyata Kurhati Deha Yogam
Nanvanyata
Ajasya Janmotpadanashanaya Karmanya Katu Brahanya Pumsam Nanva Anyata Bodhadideha Yogam Paro Gunana Udakarma Tantram
Ajasya Janmo Patanasanaya Karmanya Akuta Ruhanaya Pumsam Navanyato Karayati Deha Yogam Paro Gunanam Utakarma Tantram
Ajasya Janmotpadanashanaya Karmanya Katu Grahanaya Pumsam Nanvanyata Kurhati Deha Yogam Paro Gunanam Utakarma Tantram
Ajasya of the unborn, Janma, appearance, Utpatanashanaya, for the sake of annihilating the upstarts, Karmani, works, Akartu, of one who has nothing to do, Rahanaya, to take up, Pumsam, of all persons, Nanu Anyata, otherwise, Kaha, who, Arhati, may deserve, Deha Yogam, contact of the body, Paraha, transcendental, Gunanam, of the three modes of nature, Uta, what to speak of, Karma Tantram, the law of action and reaction. Translation: the appearance of the Lord is manifested for the annihilation of the upstarts. His activities are transcendental and are enacted for the understanding of all persons. Otherwise, since the Lord is transcendental to all material modes, what purpose could he serve by coming to earth? Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Ishvara Paramat Krishna Sachit Ananda Vigraha. Brahma Samhita 5.1. The form of the Lord is eternal, blissful, and all-knowing. His so-called birth is therefore an appearance only, like the birth of the sun on the horizon. His birth does not, like that of the living entities, take place under the influence of material nature and the bondage of the reactions of past deeds. His works and activities are independent pastimes and are not subject to the reactions of material nature. In Bhagavad Gita 4.14 it is said, Namam karmani limpanti, name karma phale spriha, iti mam yo vijanati, karma virna sabadyate. The law of karma enacted by the Supreme Lord for the living entities cannot be applicable to him. Nor has the Lord any desire to improve himself by activities like those of ordinary living beings. Ordinary living beings work for the improvement of their conditional lives, but the Lord is already full of all opulence, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. Why should he desire improvement? excel him in any opulence, and therefore the desire for improvement is absolutely useless for him. One should always discriminate between the activities of the Lord and those of ordinary living beings. Thus, one may come to the right conclusion regarding the Lord's transcendental position. One who can come to the conclusion of the Lord's transcendence can become a devotee of the Lord and can at once be free from all reactions of past deeds. It is said, Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajan. The Lord minimizes or nullifies the reactionary influence of the devotee's past deeds. Ramasamhita 5:54. The activities of the Lord are to be accepted and relished by all living entities. His activities are to attract the ordinary man towards the Lord. The Lord always acts in favor of the devotees, and therefore ordinary men who are fruitive actors or seekers of salvation may be attracted to the Lord when he acts as protector of the devotees. The fruitive actors can attain their goals by devotional service, and the salvationists can also attain their goal in life by devotional service to the Lord. The devotees do not want the fruitive results of their work, nor do they want any kind of salvation. They relish the glorious superhuman activities of the Lord, such as his lifting Govardhan hill and his killing the demon Putana in infancy. His activities are enacted to attract all kinds of men, karmis, jnanis, and bhaktas. Because he is transcendental to all laws of karma, there is no possibility of his accepting a form of maya, as is forced on the ordinary living entities who are bound by the actions and reactions of their own deeds. The secondary purpose of his appearance is to annihilate the upstart asuras and to stop the nonsense of atheistic propaganda by less intelligent persons. By the Lord's causeless mercy, the asuras who are killed personally by the personality of Godhead get salvation. The meaningful appearance of the Lord is always distinct from ordinary birth. Even the pure devotees have no connection with the material body, and certainly the Lord, who appears as he is in his Satchit Ananda form, is not limited by a material form. Arash, would you like to speak on this?
It's good for the living entities to hear about the personality of God, because his activities are all transcendental. His qualities are all transcendental. Whereas living entities, they also act, they have personality, they have qualities, they have some opulence, but comparatively it's very small and very insignificant. So one should not think that he can ever become equal with God. And people think that God is without form. They try to make that as a flattery that he's not restricted by having a material body. That doesn't mean he has no body. It means he has no material body. He has form, but he has transcendental form. Form that doesn't deteriorate. Form that is not destroyable. Form that brings all bliss. Our forms are not always blissful. We may get some pains and diseases and things in our form. But Krishna you never see a picture of painting of Lord Krishna as a diseased person or old person. Has anyone ever seen a painting of Krishna old? With a long gray beard? Because he never goes old. He's eternally youthful, not a yoga. So whatever the living entities are looking for, they'll find in Krishna. That means that they're looking for wealth. Krishna's the most wealthy person. How can you get more wealth than Krishna? Are you looking for beauty or looking for fame? Krishna's the most famous. So if someone becomes a devotee of Krishna, and he becomes the most famous person. Who are the most famous people in the world? Muhammad, Jesus. The persons who are Krishna. Not that one should think he is Krishna, he is God. It's not possible to become God. But one can be an obedient servant. Then he gets all the good qualities. All the good qualities are naturally become apparent and visible in the persons who are devotees. Why? Because it's like, why is a person who's born in a wealthy family? Why does he become wealthy? He's wealthy as soon as he's born. Others have to work very hard to get a few dollars. He's born in a wealthy family. His father already got money in his account. He already has beauty. Anyone who's connected closely with Krishna naturally becomes more and more attractive. And we see that. The more a person, actually probably, as a person becomes very devoted and close to God, that's what we say, that the spiritual master is very dear to Krishna. Therefore, he's worth taking shelter of, he's worth offering obeisances to. This is a transcendental mystery of God and his relationship with the living entities. Anything or anyone, even land, if you take land, and you build a temple on the land, it suddenly becomes the most spiritual place. How does it become spiritual? Because Krishna is spiritual. It's like if you have fire, and anything that comes in contact with fire becomes warmer. And ultimately, if you put an iron rod into the fire for a long time, it becomes red hot. It can act just like fire. So living entities are representatives of Krishna if they're connected with him in devotional service. That's the only way that one can really connect on a pure platform, is to be connected with him through devotional service. Not that just only by meditation. Although meditation on the Lord is a transcendental activity, but meditation on nothingness, that's not transcendental. That's not possible. No one can meditate on nothing. Even you have to meditate on the act of meditating on nothing. So something's being meditated on. But the question, what should be meditated on? The answer is Krishna. Krishna should be the center of all activity, all thoughts, all speech, all books should be about Krishna's glories and the glories of those who are surrendered to Krishna. They also should be glorified. Like Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam is the story of Krishna and his devotees. So that's what's needed in the world. Put Krishna in the center. Ishalastamidam saram yatkinchachikacham jagat. If Krishna is put, or God is put in the center of all activities, then everything becomes peaceful. Everything becomes quite blissful. Because Krishna is the source of all pleasure. He is Rama. He is the reservoir of all pleasure. And that pleasure, he gives that pleasure to anyone who comes in contact with it. Otherwise, why is it that people like chanting Hare Krishna? This is the name of Krishna and God. How is it that if they don't even know what it means, they get pleasure? Because it acts. Just like if someone's sick and takes medicine that's given by the bona fide physician, then he becomes cured, even if he doesn't know how the medicine is working. So even if someone doesn't know how Krishna is so great, why his name, you try chanting Coca-Cola for an hour, and then chant Hare Krishna for an hour, it's the difference.
Yasya Gyanjana Shalakaya Chaksharandalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha Shri Chaitanya Ravisha Shadipani Bhuta Sarvabhakadamayam Vedati Swavadantinam Vaneham Shri Guru Shri Tavarakanam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Krishna Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tatta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hadipriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Vibhasadubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that the transcendental nature of his appearance and why he appears. And he says, Avajanantimam mudha manushim tanam ashritam param bhavam ajalananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. So, foolish persons assume that he is just a material man, an ordinary human being. But we understand that actually he has his transcendental nature and his supreme dominion over everything. He also explains that in the Bhagavad Gita, that Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatvataha taktva deham punar janma nati mam iti swarjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So that's the benefit of knowing his transcendental nature, is that one who knows that goes back to Krishna. And Krishna's transcendental nature is beyond he's beyond the modes of material nature. He's not forced to take on a material body like the conditioned living entities. Every conditioned soul in this material world, although they are eternal, full of bliss and full of knowledge, Satchidananda, they become incarcerated in the material body, which is not eternal, it's temporary, it's not full of knowledge, the body itself is unconscious, and it's not blissful. It suffers and it's miserable. It's described as the very residence or the very temple of disease, the body. So the eternal spirit soul gets encaged in a material body and then begins to identify with that body. But that's not the case when Krishna comes to the material world. He descends in his original transcendental form. His form, his Satchit Ananda Rupa, is a fully spiritual form. And he's transcendental, meaning that he's beyond time and space. So he's known as Ananta Rupa. That seems contradictory. Ananta, unlimited, and form. People think form is something limited. I have this form, so if I can be right here, but I can't be in Bermuda or some other place at the same time. I'm just in one spot. I can be this big, but I'm not, I don't fill up the whole room. But he's Ananta Rupa. He has form, and he has unlimited form. So he descends in unlimited different forms, as Krishna, as Raha, as Rama, as so many different incarnations as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he's Anantarupa. He's beyond time and space. He's smaller than the smallest in his form as the Paramatma. He's inside every atom. And then at the same time, he's bigger than the biggest. As Mahavishnu, all the universes are emanating from his pores. And still, he maintains his medium-sized form, and he appears like a human being and does his different activities. So in that way, he's beyond space, and he's also beyond time. He's not... and another thing for beyond space is he can appear in many places at once. He's seated within the hearts of all the living entities, directing their wanderings, and at the same time, he's enacting his pastimes in the spiritual world. And he has his expansions carrying out other functions in the universe. So he can be in many places at once, like we heard in the purport. Even his devotees, they're not conditioned by material nature. They don't have a material body. So then what to speak of him? Even his devotees can be in many places at once, like Narada Muni. Sometimes he's here in this universe, sometimes he's in the spiritual universe at the same time. He's doing all sorts of different activities. There's that example of that time when all these sages, Krishna is with all these great sages, and one king invites them for prasad, and one poor person invites them for prasad at the same time. But they're both devotees, so Krishna wants to satisfy both of his devotees. So he just expands, and his followers expand as well. So there's two groups of the sages, and they go to both of the homes, and there's two groups of the homes. Normal yogis expand, where it's just like a television set. Each expansion does the exact same thing. So it wasn't that one group of yogis in one house starts eating, and then in the other home, even though prasad isn't served yet, they're also doing the same thing. But they each have individual forms in both the homes. He's beyond space, like that his devotees also are too, and he's beyond time. He's not forced to come to this material world for any reason. This phone, the sound's on the phone. You have to click the top corner and the little speaker on it. So he's not forced to come to this material world. He comes out of his own will. That was mentioned in the purport. Where is it? Well, it's mentioned many times in a lot of different ways, but I'm looking for one specific sentence. But, so that's the point, is he doesn't come to the material world being forced to do so, but he comes out of his own will. And this is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita. In the verse just before the last one I read, it explains why Krishna comes, as we heard here, to annihilate the demons and to protect the devotees. He says, Pritvanaya sabhinam vinashaya chadushkritam dharma samsthapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge, to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion. I myself appear millennium after millennium. So it might sound like he's on a time schedule there, like, okay, the demons appeared, now Krishna's got to come, his alarm's going off, he's got to get up and come to the material world. He's forced, he's got to clock in the material universe. But he's beyond time, and that's explained in the purport. Lord Sri Krishna descends for the specific purpose of, first, Srila Prabhupada explains how it's not that he has to, clock in to kill the demons whenever they appear. The demons appear, and regardless of, Krishna doesn't have to come and kill the demons. They're only alive because he's in their heart, allowing them to live. They're only able to move their body because he's there as the, one name of Krishna is Pranada. It's in Vishnu Sahasranam. It means the giver of life, or like the very life of the living entity. And prana, it also means this vital force within the body, or this. It's also known as like the described as the airs. Sometimes the yogis, they control the breathing process in order to keep this prana within the body, because when we're born we only have so many breaths that we're going to take and exhale. So they more or less stop breathing, and in that way they live longer. So this prana, this life of the body, that's also Krishna. So he doesn't need to come himself, he could just stop functioning in their body as the air that's running at the prana, the life force. So, but why does he come? That's explained in the purport. Lord Sri Krishna descends for the specific purpose of mitigating the anxieties of the pure devotees, who are very anxious to see him in his original Vrindavan pastimes. Therefore, the prime purpose of the Krishna avatar is to satisfy his unalloyed devotees. So he comes because he wants to, out of his sweet will. Because he loves his devotees and his devotees love him, and like this, he comes for that reason, for his devotees. So he's beyond time. He's not on any schedule. He knows past, present, and future. And he's beyond space. He's transcendental. So sometimes people try to make up philosophies and say, okay, well, Krishna, like I remember when we were on Harinam, and one of those, the fanatical Christians, he had a big sign telling everyone they're going to hell, and he's yelling at everybody. And when we walked by him, he was like, your God died 5,000 years ago, or something like this. So people who are less intelligent will make these claims that God died. Which already doesn't make sense, because if we understand that God is the very source of everything, he's the very maintainer who's keeping everything together, then it is a very inferior type of intelligence to think that God can die. So then how is everything maintained? So it's a very dull position. So some people say that Krishna was here for some time. He's an ordinary human being, and then he was very strong, he had some powers, and then he was killed by a hunter. But even that, Krishna, he enacts these different pastimes, as explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, to bewilder the atheists. Out of his will, or out of his mercy on the living entities. Because if someone wants to forget Krishna, it's only by Krishna's will that they can do anything they're doing. So he gives the living entities free will. If they want to forget him, he helps them do that. So he appears like an ordinary human being. And so those who are less intelligent can keep that mindset of, okay, this is just an ordinary man, and I can continue my program of trying to be God. And in that way they can fulfill their material desires. So even when he leaves this material world, people say, okay, a hunter shot him with an arrow in his foot and he died. Has anyone ever seen anyone die from getting hit with an arrow in the foot? So like this, for those who are less intelligent, he, through his mercy, allows them to be bewildered and plays out his different pastimes in this way. But if we hear from his pure devotees, then we can understand actually what is the nature of the Supreme, how he is eternal, how he is appearing in all the different universes like a traveling roadshow, coming from one to the other just to attract the living entities back to their eternal home in the spiritual world. And that's how he's understood, not by mental speculation or by trying to understand him with our material senses, which will always fall short. Atav Shri Krishna namadi nabhave grayam indriyai sevam mukhehi jivado swayam eva sparatida. The materially covered, materially contaminated senses are never able to understand the absolute truth, or something transcendental, because they're materially covered. But to one who engages in the service of the absolute truth, which begins with the tongue, jivado, then he agrees to reveal himself. So that's how transcendental subject matters are understood, and that's how the absolute truth can be understood, by giving up our false pride and becoming a little humble in our position and submissive to that absolute truth. And then the absolute truth agrees to be revealed. So that absolute truth is Krishna. He has an eternal spiritual body, and he descends to the material world for the pleasure of his devotees, to enact his different pastimes, to give them something to speak about. And by speaking about Krishna, then everything is fulfilled. That's the perfection of life. To be always engaged in kirtan, then one can go back to Godhead, more or less. So, not more or less, but as a fact, one can go back to Godhead by always engaging the tongue in vibrating topics about Krishna and in tasting Krishna prasad, foodstuffs that have been offered to the Lord. So these points are there. Is there any questions or comments? Is Jagannath Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. I was wondering when you said that that it's Krishna's mercy that envious people become bewildered. I was wondering why this is.
What is?
Why it is that it's his mercy that he lets envious people become bewildered.
Why is it his mercy?
Or how is it his mercy? I don't know how to word it.
Why is it his mercy? Because it's very kind of him to do that. It's, if someone, okay, say I have some problem with you, and I'm thinking, Jagannath Prabhu, this guy, I don't want to see him. So then you would probably be like, okay, alright, I don't want to see you either, right? But if I'm saying, Jagannath, I'm annoyed with him, I don't want to see this guy, and then you help me to fulfill that desire, okay, you don't want to, be around me, make this whole arrangement where you never have to think of me ever again. You can, you can live in this place. I'll even give you everything you need for maintaining your body. There's like a nice home, nice environment, foodstuffs. Everything you need is here, and it's all arranged in such a way you'll never see an image of me, or hear of me, or think of me ever again. It's a perfect arrangement. You can do your thing and never think of me. That's very merciful. I mean, someone doesn't want to be around me or something, I'm like, okay, whatever. But Krishna is so merciful, even if one is envious of him, he provides all the ingredients for them still to try to fulfill their envious desires. So that's our position in the material world. I was just reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni is explaining the allegorical story of Puranjana to King Prachinabarhi. And in this story, Srila Prabhupada wrote in the purport, based on something Narada Muni was saying, that one should not make any distinction between attachment and envy. They're the same thing. So if I'm envious, I'm attached. If I'm attached, it's because I'm envious. So we come to this material world, we have so many material desires, so many attachments. Why do we come? Out of enviousness. I want to be Krishna, I want to be the enjoyer. Why does he have, why does everyone love him? Why do they always talk about him? Why is he in the center? Why does he have all the gopis? I want to do that. So like that, then we come to the material world out of that enviousness, and we become attached to so many material things, and envious of so many living entities, and that attachment and envy just increases and increases and increases until one becomes fortunate. Kona Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Vai Bhakti Lata Beach. After going up and down in this material world, birth after birth, sometimes demigods, sometimes a fish, sometimes a cat, sometimes a human, all these different species, sometimes in the hellish planets and then back up again, like a Ferris wheel. But after wandering around in this material world, if they become fortunate, they get the association of a pure devotee. They get a guru, a spiritual master, who knows Krishna. And then by the mercy of the spiritual master, they get Krishna. So actually that starts with by the mercy of Krishna. So by the mercy of Krishna, he sees that they have a sincere desire to give up their envious mentality and surrender to him, become submissive to him. So he reciprocates with the living entity. By Krishna's mercy, they get a spiritual master, and then by the spiritual master's mercy, he instructs them how to carry out devotional service. They follow that instruction and make it their life and soul. And then by the spiritual master's mercy, they get Krishna. And then they can get out of this never-ending cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. So we're here now, we're hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. Many of us are taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, and we're also taking shelter of the bona fide spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, in the form of his books. So everyone who's here is very fortunate, and we can share that fortune by distributing these books of Srila Prabhupada, especially the sets of his books, like Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. I heard one audio of Prabhupada that he was speaking with his disciples, and he was saying, they're not distributing like the whole set. I don't know why they're not doing it. I was doing it myself. People were taking orders. That Library of Congress, they took like 10 orders or something like this, in this other library, in this place. They're all ordered. I was selling them the whole set. I don't know why these boys are not doing it. So, Srila Prabhupada was distributing the whole set of Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita himself. So we can also try to do that, and in this way make other living entities fortunate, and in this way we become more fortunate too, because the more that we're sharing Krishna with others, he says there's no one more dear to me than one who's actually preaching Krishna consciousness. So we can try to do that, and in that way be real heroes, because in the Srimad Bhagavatam, also in this King Paranjana story, it was explained how there's material heroes. So one who's very materially attached, he becomes a hero in the material world by doing all of his different duties and, in the material world. But one who just tries to benefit all living entities by giving them Krishna consciousness, one who just makes the order of their spiritual master his life and soul, that person becomes a spiritual hero. So yesterday we were at the plaza, and during the Harinam, some guys started shooting the Shake Shack, which is not surprising because we actually read in a purport just before that due to immense animal slaughter, then people are getting slaughtered in the forms of so many wars. Because of these animal slaughterhouses, people get sent onto the battlefields and get killed. So the place where they're selling all the hamburgers, somebody was shooting it. And when that was happening, I laid down behind the statue of the boar who looks like Lord Rahadev. And I was concerned because the noise kept going on, so I looked up, and above me there's Rahadev and there's Spider-Man. And Spider-Man was like peeking out and looking at the sound. And I was asking him like what was going on, what was he seeing? And I was just thinking about this after, is in the material world, the heroes that we have don't compare at all to the real hero, Krishna. Spider-Man, what does he do? He shoots a few webs, he fights some guy with some octopus arms or something in the movie, and he gets a girlfriend. That's about it. But Lord Rahadev, he's indestructible. He's a transcendental boar who can lift the entire earthly planetary system on his tusk. Nothing can stop him. When he fights a demon, he does it for fun. And when he defeats them, he just slaps them with his hook, and it's over. So, if we take shelter of these heroes of the material world, like Spider-Man and these other made-up heroes and all them, what's the use? And the other thing is, even just by thinking about Krishna, such as in the form of Rahadev, say if I was to die, and I just think of Rahadev, even if he's not there to protect me or something like that, or he's indestructible, so he could protect anybody. But just by thinking of him, one's fully benefited, because we read in the Bhagavad Gita that one who's thinking of Krishna at the time of death, they go back to him. So he's that powerful. So if I think of Spider-Man at the time of death, I'll just probably be born as like some lusty guy. But if I think of Krishna in any of his unlimited forms at the time of death, then there's no more birth, no more death, no more old age, no more disease. You go back to Krishna in the spiritual world. So we can give others the chance for that and give ourselves the chance for that too by distributing these books for Srila. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.